Mike and Chris. I see your notes. Okay, I think we can get started. We're doing pretty well. Hello, everyone. I'm Clayton Smith, Chair of the Parks and Public Spaces Committee for Community Board 5. We are hearing a couple of items tonight. The official position of Community Board 5 is not until a week from Thursday, when the full board will hear the committee's deliberations. That meeting information and sign up there for the public is at cb5.org. And we are good on quorum. We are going to begin with a little bit of a rehash of an issue that we heard a couple of months ago, namely the proposed position of the Director of the Public Realm put forth by Municipal Art Society and New Yorkers for Parks. So Tara Kelly is with us from MAS. Hi, Tara.
Hello.
Hello. So by way of recap, everyone, we heard this, as you might recall, as a committee specific to issues that pertain to our committee's jurisdiction. And there are many of them with this proposed position. And we agreed unanimously to put that into a written statement that we weren't exactly sure what the strategy was going to be, but be submitted to the city in some fashion to indicate our support for the proposed position. In the 2 or 3 weeks immediately following that, as you know, the BEX Committee on Community Board 5 took up the same issue in regards to the formal budget request for the year. And we determined that that was the best way to lead on this issue, coming from the budget request process formally. And now that that has been done, we thought that it was a good idea to rehear this idea at committee again for 2 reasons. Number one is to hear from Municipal Art Society about any updates we should know about, whatever progress has been made, or anything that has been further evolved in the proposed position since the time that we saw them last. And secondly, just as a strategy for Community Board 5, since there is such widespread support for this proposed position, even as many details continue to be talked about, is that we as a committee can take the content of that written statement and actually, assuming that we have things we might want to add or talk about tonight, put that into the form of an actual resolution, which is just stronger, and then can be sent to full board. And then at full board, people on other committees, the other issues can add something that they'd like there if they see, if they deem fit. And then we will actually have a statement of support as a resolution from the full board, which is the strongest way moving forward after our already being on the public record for the budget request. So that is why we were having this kind of rerun of hearing this issue on tonight's agenda. And so before I turn it over to Tara, I just wanted to see if there are any questions from members of the committee about this, anything procedurally, or any questions or comments that you have at this time. And Luke did drop the link to the registration for the full board meeting into the chat, by the way. And seeing none, I will ask Tara to give us kind of a recap of how things have progressed over the last 3 months, I think it is, since we had you here last.
Well, so, we continue to have our action alert on our website asking members of the public to send a note to Mayor de Blasio requesting that this position be created. We had a series of 4 conversations over the course of October and November about sort of management and oversight of the public realm as it pertains to design, how it works in relationship to providing open and green space, how the public realm is adapting to support businesses through streetail and open dining, and one more, active transit. And so all things that I think that CB5 is well acquainted with, and sort of how we see that we really need this coordinating position to balance all of these really important aspects of our public realm infrastructure. So we've just been continuing the conversation. This, as you know, is also part of our larger Fight for Light campaign. And so we're working on some land use recommendations around that in the form of a development framework. And so we're kind of in the research phase of that work, and just continuing though to conduct outreach around the director of the public realm. So no major movement in the time since we last spoke, but very happy to have your support in whatever form that takes. And I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you so much. I'm curious with the land use recommendations, if who's doing that research, and what you kind of imagine, how detailed and in the weeds you imagine getting into that simply as part of the position proposal.
Sure. So we see these two things as sort of dovetailing one another, that we need coordination and oversight of the public realm. And then we also need some more prescriptive measures taken in terms of our land use process to improve elements of the public realm. And we see that role of the director of the public realm is really integral to sorry, the word has just gone from my head, to execute and oversee and implement those changes. So this is work that we've been focused on for about 1.5 years. In broad strokes, it was in our Bright Ideas report, where we had a number of recommendations looking at cities around the world for how they better facilitate sunlight protections in the public realm. And we're focused in 3 key areas around design guidelines, environmental review, and regulations. So essentially zoning. So that's work that we're doing at the staff level, but we've had some workshops with experts, again, from around the country and around the world. And we're working on that to hopefully have something come out in January.
Very cool. And is there any more public forums that have you been to any other community boards or any other groups since we saw you last?
You know, Spencer and Stephen have been out on the circuit, and I don't have an exhaustive list in front of me, but I can connect back with them and find out who all they've been in contact with. But we're trying to build a broad coalition, not just of community boards, but elected officials, looking for a champion for this position, and also affiliated groups to support the campaign. And again, I'll just remind you guys that this is part of our larger Fight for Light campaign. So there is a focus on protection for sunlight within the public realm. But as you all note, there are really important elements of this position that are integral to all aspects of planning in New York City and in the public realm, where so much of our life takes place. So you know, we see that this is far beyond what our campaign is calling for. We see the utility in this position.
Great, thank you, Tara. Yeah, we'd be interested in knowing specifically about community boards, just so that we're informed about what other boards we might be aligned with already. If that's the matter of the public record yet, that's just useful information to know. And then of course, we'd be happy to speak and coordinate with other community boards and moving forward to borough board as well. So, to my fellow community board committee members, does anyone have any questions for Tara or about the proposed position that maybe didn't strike you 3 months ago when this was a new idea to us? Todd. Unmute yourself.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. So this is for Tara. So what is your concept of how the head of the public realm or the office of public realm, what would be the best way to empower it? Should it be part of the mayor's office? Should it be, you know, a separate elected official with all that involves? You know, should it be somebody that's beholden to the city council? I mean, what is your concept of that? And how should we, as a community board, if it's to be created going forward, how do we lobby for that?
So, you know, when we were researching sort of where this would sit within the government, you know, we debated a lot of these ideas, and I don't think that we have the strong resolve about the exact right and perfect answer. We in our report state that it should be within the mayor's office so that it can coordinate between all the different departments and agencies. But we also understand that that is only as effective as the mayor who appoints that person. And so I think that in terms of accountability and empowerment, this call coming from the people of New York City asking for this position to be created to then create some accountability to the public, I think is really important. But, you know, we've had suggestions from other colleagues, particularly in the 4 series conversation on open space that we had was moderated by Susan Chin, and she strongly advocates for a deputy mayor position to really oversee all of those disparate agencies. So, you know, I think that we're trying to get the conversation started. And I think that, you know, it's you as members of the community board who interface and interact with all of these agencies have better suggestions and recommendations for how this would be implemented and be most effective. We're certainly open to hearing that and adjusting. But the reasoning that we had for the mayoral office was so that we could have coordination between the agencies.
Thank you. And Todd, also just to follow up on that, I think similar to the statement that we wrote in response last time, the language in this resolution will necessarily reflect the fact that this is the beginning of a process of developing this framework for this position. So this does not necessarily mean that we are unanimously in support of specific things that are not yet in place. So I think that it makes a lot of sense that the position being in the mayor's office is the one that would be quickest to have authority and would come with the least baggage. But as Tara said, it also depends on who the mayor is. So looking at that and also looking at what a more institutional, broader fix would be is something that, of course, would interest us. So just to reiterate that this statement of support is loose in terms of the details as the position is now, and that we would very much look forward and hope that we have the ability, once the budget is approved to create this position, that we have the ability to then weigh in a more fine detailed level of how this would actually work, coordinating between different agencies and all those operational details. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? And while we're waiting, I will also open it up to members of the public. If there are any members of the public who have any questions or comments about the proposed position. Yes, Leslie Hendricks. Luke will. Yes, you should be good.
Leslie, you have to unmute.
Hi, I'm Leslie Hendricks with the 29th Street Neighborhood Association. And what we see is that there's no coordination between land use. There's no land use with public spaces. And so you have this hodgepodge across the city. What we're finding is the most frustrating are POPs spaces, because there doesn't seem to be any uniform rule, and there doesn't seem to be any uniform enforcement if they developers not meeting their promises. So they get all the benefits without having to take any responsibility. Do you see that there will be some coordination between, say, open streets and POP spaces and bike lanes or increased pedestrian plazas, so that there's some sort of city planning to coordinate all these things? And how would that be enforced?
That's precisely our hope. What we do see is that there is not a lot of coordination between these agencies, and POPs being the case in point, where it's city planning who understands best what the particular rules are for each one, but it's the Department of Buildings who enforces it. And I think that we're seeing a little bit more intention, and they've improved a little bit in terms of their communication between the agencies, but we really would like, the public doesn't understand the difference between the agency jurisdiction between that POPs next to a plaza next to a park, next to the bike lane as being, something, it's a seamless public realm. At least we want it to experientially be seamless. And so we want better coordination between those agencies. And so that's why we hope that we have having someone looking at the bigger picture and not just saying like, that's not me, that's you. It's the person fulfilling that role who says all of this is the same thing. And that's how the public needs to experience it. And for the most part does. And so it's all got to be coordinated.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And yeah, also following up on that, one thing that we highlight in our language certainly is about enforcement, because to the point of, for example, cafes in a Pops, it is just no one understands, there is no rationale that is the Department of City Planning who is responsible for enforcing a sidewalk cafe in a Pops when everyone is familiar with DCA doing the same on a sidewalk. And after being on the community board for X number of years, eventually you catch on to how it works, but there's nothing rational about it, and it can be very frustrating. So very much to Leslie's point, I think the enforcement of many different kinds would be one of the key things I think that we would look forward to this position tackling how to better resolve for the public. Chris, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Clayton. So this might be a bit of a premature question, to be honest, but just thinking about the different agencies and departments that this position would interface with, would that have to be sort of enumerated as the position is being created, that here is a bulleted list of the agencies that the position has some sort of responsibility to, or would the position be able to, as new problems and challenges come up, would they be able to say, pull in the police department or some other agency that might not be included in that initial idea of what agencies and departments are relevant? Would there be that sort of flexibility, or would everything be sort of listed out in advance?
Well, it's certainly, in working on our report, even the graphic that's on our website sort of demonstrating the difficulty of the interjurisdictional sort of warfare that happens on the street, it's almost impossible even to list all of them into a chart because there are just so many, whether you're talking about sanitation and trash pickup to transportation to MTA to, just everything that you could possibly think of. So I think that we would make an attempt to recognize all of the potential variables, but I think that it needs to be flexible because you also have authorities and utilities. So there's so much that goes into these spaces that it is very complex. And I think that at this point, obviously, it's incredibly flexible because we haven't hashed it all out yet.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? And seeing none, can I hear, I'm assuming that everyone is on board with this proposed position, especially as it's already part of our public record, but we'll see. But could I hear a motion to have a resolution on this topic?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. Let's take this to a vote.
Clayton.
Yes.
Craig is a yes. Dave. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I can't, you're muted. David Kalis. I'll come back to you. Miriam.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
I think Kelly's not here. Chris.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Will.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
Evan.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Noah.
Yes.
Jessica.
Yes.
Dave, are you back with us?
Yes.
Thanks. Motion passes.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Tara will be in touch. And thank you so much for attending tonight. And we look forward to next steps.
Thanks so much for inviting us, and we're really happy to have your support. See you all soon.
We'll see you soon. All right, moving on. I should have mentioned at the outset that our third agenda item tonight was removed from the agenda because DOT was not able to attend, and there was nothing particularly pressing about hearing that this cycle. So we will be hearing the automated public toilet siting issue next cycle that is already posted on the agenda online for next month. And second, but not least, we have the Madison Square Park Conservancy. Welcome. We also have Rebecca Smith, who's a representative of the Salvation Army. And Will or Mary, would one of you like to introduce this application?
So honestly, I haven't had a chance to connect with anybody on this yet. I can introduce it based on my understanding from the reading, but I don't know, Mary, if you've had a chance to speak to anybody or not.
No, I
Well,
haven't. Sorry.
You have not?
Okay, Will, this was an unusual cycle because of the holiday. So a lot of legwork was done by email and stuff prior. So it's, if you want to just introduce based on your reading of the application, that's fine.
Sure. My understanding of the application is that this is an event that the Salvation Army is proposing to host in Madison Square Park. And there are a few, I think it's maybe just best to let the Salvation Army present the application themselves, or with the Conservancy. I don't know if Keats or Robin would like to do that.
Sure,
But I'm not going to do it justice, honestly. So.
Yeah, Keats, you're muted.
Thank you. So first of all, hi everyone. It's nice to see so many familiar faces in our weird new world, which may come to an end at some point next year.
The world? The world? Or
the weirdness of our world. Just first of all, a quick update on the park. We are obviously still open and have been throughout, and have staff coming in every day. And we're sort of proud that we've been able to be there for people, to be a sort of safe outdoor space. It's been harrowing at times, but mostly we're clean, green, and safe. So one of the things that has hit us hard is marketing events. Obviously, we haven't had many applications for them or any, and we've lost a lot of revenue as a result. So not only are we excited about the presentation that Salvation Army is going to be putting in the park, but it's meaningful to us in that it's sort of a glimmer of hope for future earned income to keep the park going. With that, I will, and I want to thank Robin Lockwood for being here. Robin is our Deputy Director of Community Relations, and Stephanie Stachow, who, oops, my puppy just jumped on me. Stephanie Stachow, who is our Community Relations and HR Manager. So Stephanie's going to walk us through, and of course, to Rebecca, welcome. It's nice to see your face from the Salvation Army. And I believe, Stephanie, you're going to be giving the presentation, correct?
Yeah, so I'm happy to give a presentation. Does everyone mind if I share my screen? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Thank you. And let me just, okay, so hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Stachow. I've actually been with Madison Square Park for almost 6 years at this point, mainly in an operations capacity and just recently in this new role. So today we're presenting a sculpture of the iconic Salvation Army red kettle that will be placed in the park for 5 days in December. It harkens back to a long tradition of sidewalk kettles on New York City street corners since 1903. It will remind New Yorkers and visitors to share in the joy of the holiday season and to serve those in need. So throughout December, this piece will actually be touring the city, including Times Square, the Meatpacking District, and Astor Place. This is a one-time event, and a generous donation has been given to Madison Square Park Conservancy. As Keats had mentioned, this is our first and only marketing event for 2020 due to COVID. So in terms of the actual dates, the Installation will happen on December 11th, overnight from 12 to 6 a.m. An MSBC rep will be on site, and per the Parks Department regulations, no vehicles will enter the park, and all materials will be either walked in or dollied in. They will be erected using a scissor lift. Any construction lights that are being in use will not be pointed at residential buildings. And we anticipate that the crew will finish around 5 a.m. With a final site clean by 6 a.m. So there's no disruption to any park visitors when we open at 6 a.m. The kettle itself will be the kettle itself will be in the park from December 11th to December 15th. The kettle is a larger kettle and will have a frame, a kettle itself, and will be illuminated with string lights similar to our holiday decorations in the park that already exist there every December. It will have a couple of small spotlights at the base. And I honestly don't anticipate it to overpower our regular holiday lights display at all. During a 12-hour period during the day and evening, there's an on-site team which can press a remote that will cause the lights to go from a static state on the kettle to a very glowing like state for about 10 seconds. The glow light will be disabled at 11 with consideration for residents along the park. During the activation, there will be security present 24 hours a day. There will be a Salvation Army volunteer on site to answer any questions about the installation if they're asked, and a technician and site manager will be present to ensure smooth operation throughout. And then the load in itself, the load out itself will be December 15th. They plan to wrap at 8 p.m. And disassemble by 11:30. This is actually one of the shortest loadouts that we'll have out of any marketing event we've done before. And we anticipate it to be much easier based on the actual kettle. So here's a concept art of the actual kettle installation that will be on site. The base beams will be 16 feet in length and it'll be a height of 32 feet. The kettle itself is 5.5 feet tall, 5 feet wide. And I know there are concerns about potentially the kettle swinging in inclement weather, but that's already been built in. There are hook features at the bottom of the kettle that will allow weights to be attached so the kettle will not swing. And that can be secured during any type of weather if we need to, as well as over the overnight. There is a signboard that informs people how to donate electronically via text or web page if they choose to do so. No physical donations will be exchanged per Parks Department rules and regulations. No materials or giveaways will be distributed. There is a live stream camera similar to the Shake Shack camera, which will be pointed at the kettle. It allows visitors to go to the webpage to view the kettle itself. Per your suggestions on past meetings, there will be a sign letting visitors know that there is a camera being used. They may be photographed if they go near the kettle. As for the actual design on the kettle itself, it's really a combination of snowflakes, holiday bills, and the actual Salvation Army logo. This will be on a red kettle, and all of the decorations on it will be white itself. As for the location of the event, it's located on our West Gravel in Madison Square Park near the 23rd Street and Broadway corner. So you can see here, number 1 red triangle is where the kettle will be. There will be a 10 by 10 unbranded white tent for the site team that will be on site, kind of managing the event itself. And it will also, the lights will be powered by a very small generator. It's one of those 1.5 gallon generators, very quiet and everything. The installation will follow a social distancing plan and requirements per the Parks Department special event permit. We really don't anticipate huge crowds or any crowds really for this event, but if necessary, we are prepared to deploy social distancing markers that hug the gravel line just to the left of the red triangle. So that would actually follow up the pathway towards where you see the 101. That line would be the social distancing line if any crowds are expected, but we don't really anticipate anything.
Stephanie, can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
I noticed this page says 5'6" kettle, and that's
Yes.
a reference to the height. I think some of the documents that were submitted say 7'6". Can you just confirm?
Yeah, sorry about that. The kettle actually shrunk in size since the document was first submitted.
But it's still a 32-foot tall frame.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that's pretty much the majority of our presentation. Myself, Keats, Robin, and Rebecca are here to answer any questions for you.
Great, thank you so much. Will and Mary, I'll let you lead with any questions if you have any.
I would just note a question that you guys might normally anticipate. We often comment on these notices about being filmed. If there's any better way that we could address that potentially.
Will, hi, it's Robin.
Hey,
Steph
Robin.
doing the presentation I usually do, and I know exactly the language you're talking about. We've actually, we're working with the Salvation Army to draft it, but we'd appreciate any suggestions. As Steph said, the camera is really going to be shining on the kettle. It's not meant to be, catching a lot of people, but if somebody walks by it, they may get caught on the live feed. They do delete the live feed, I think every night or every 24 hours or something. And it's not going to be used in any other way. But we're happy to send you the signage that we've agreed on the past and maybe work with that same language.
So that's similar. That's interesting because it's sort of similar to the Shake Shack cam, right? It's a live feed. Yes. It's not really there for historic purposes. It's just like in the moment you can see what's going on in the park, but it's not being used for commercial purposes or anything like that.
No.
So if that's the case, I mean, I don't know how other people on the committee feel, but I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'll just pitch in and see if anybody else has thoughts. I think you're right, Will, that the catching people incidentally is one thing that we definitely understand more so than trying to get people interviewed or whatever. Secondly, not using it for commercial use is obviously critical. And then third, one thing that you might just be wary of with the language, one of the phrases that really makes Todd Shapiro hair stand up on the back of his neck is if you do not want to be recorded on this camera, leave this space immediately. Or like terrifying language that you somehow aren't allowed to be in a public space just because you don't want to have your likeness in perpetuity throughout the universe. So language about you must leave if you don't want to be recorded is definitely language to stay away from.
Absolutely. Well, we'll stay away from that. It'll be much more polite than that.
And Todd, did you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so, given that this is just a webcam, just to record generally what's going on during the installation, the notice should make clear to everybody that that's what's going on, that it's being recorded as part of the general sense of what's going on in the neighborhood. Please be aware of it, and not something that tells people to keep out of the park, as Clayton said. And that should be fine. And the law under New York State is that incidental or de minimis capturing of images, falls within the realm of what's permissible. So I think what I'm hearing is fine.
The other item that I wanted to just ask about is with regard to sound. It seems like there's no use of amplified sound for this application, which is great. And I know that there's probably a free speech, something associated with this. I know traditionally the Salvation Army has a lot of people ringing bells around the city. And I'm wondering if, just because we're talking about in the park, if there's some way of potentially limiting, if there is a plan to have bell ringers to like certain hours or anything like that.
So this activation will have no sound component whatsoever. It's really just a art installation with lights.
Okay, great.
Great. Questions from other members of the committee? Yes, Barbara.
I was just wondering, can the kettle be moved? I mean, I know that you talked about having lights so that in the event of a storm, it couldn't sort of move around, but I'm just wondering, are people going to be able to sort of push it and, is that a problem? Are they going to play with it?
And that was definitely something that they were discussed during fabrication. The weights can be installed at any time. So if there is any tomfoolery or anything like that, the security person on site who is there 24/7 will go and address it. And if we need to install those weights so the kettle cannot move.
Okay.
But it's pretty weighty.
Okay. I don't want anybody to play with it, get hurt, you know, that whole thing. So
Understandable, totally.
and you too. Okay, thanks.
Noah.
Yes, hi. On the 11th and 15th during the load in and load out, where is the positioning of the truck, and where will the people be moving to and fro from?
In terms of the actual installation itself, or just if there's support vehicles?
I guess both. I guess where on the street where the where will the vehicles be parked
Sure.
during those 5 hours?
So it will be on Madison Avenue along 23rd to 24th Street, the east side. I've already made a request of the mayor's office to check to see if there are any film productions or any other reserves on that space, and they said that it's clear during that activation time, or
And then-
rather install time.
And then during those 4 days, will the vehicles be on Madison Avenue, or will they just be coming for those 5 hours on the 11th and the 15th?
Sure, there will be a couple of support vehicles, namely probably the scissor lift and the people who are traveling on site, for example, like the security guard and the site manager.
Okay, thank you.
Craig, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm assuming this is going to be the only marketing event that you'll have because you didn't have any before and it's already November 30th. So what % approximately of your expected marketing revenues or contributions, I should say, do you think that this will represent, do you expect this to represent? In other words, is this 20% of what you expected? Is it 70%? I'm not looking for the actual dollars. I'm just looking for how much of a shortfall percentage-wise do you think you're going to have this year?
Keith, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. It's about, 10 or 15% of what we would have had in a normal year.
So your shortfall for the year is like
Yeah.
90% roughly.
Yeah.
How are you, just out of curiosity, separate to this issue, to this application, how are you coming up with the shortfall? Because I mean, you still have your operating budget. Because,
It's been an interesting year, and I'll start that by saying that we're very proud to have kept every single employee on staff and with health insurance through December, despite the fact that we've lost 30% of our overall revenue. When you asked about, the 90% shortfall is a category. It's earned income of marketing dollars, right? So we have survived the year, I think, pretty well. The generosity of donors and foundations, and we also got some of that PPP money. We're okay for this year. I honestly think next year will be tougher. I'm assuming there won't be government money. I'm assuming foundations aren't going to be jumping in to rescue everybody in the way that they were, last April and May. I'm hoping that at some point we can actually do earned income again and have marketing events and bring that money back. We cut, 25% of our budget in March. Next year, so in 2019, we were a $5 million budget. In 2020, we're a $4 million budget, and in 2021, we'll be about a $3.5 million budget. And that's to deal with the loss of revenue. So, the marketing dollars are a big deal, and they're important, and we're grateful that the Salvation Army thinks we're an exciting place to be. But yeah, it's a big shortfall. But I think we're okay. I'm grateful, and I think a lot of other nonprofits are struggling even more.
Thank you, and it's good to hear that you were able to maintain employment for your and health benefits for your folks in this very difficult.
No kidding.
I'm glad to hear that.
Kudos. Yeah, it's been a tough year for I don't know the whole world. So anyway, we're thankful.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Craig. And again, I do this now, make a plug for people to sign up for your emails, because I find your email newsletters to be very pithy and succinct and useful and inspiring. So.
Oh, good. Are you talking about our weekly ones or the ones I send out to like our smaller community? I don't remember.
Well, I guess I'm part of the smaller community, but I actually don't differentiate between them. But both, definitely the ones you've written, your direct address ones, as well as the newsletters. They're just really well done.
Good. Thank you.
So we will come back to the committee with further discussion and comments, but I also want to open the floor. If there are any members of the public who have any questions to this application, please use the raise hand feature and let us know. And seeing none, you're free to continue to raise your hand in the next minutes here, but back to the committee. Are there further questions or comments on this application? Mary, I know you had a comment.
Yeah, as you know, Clayton, I didn't feel comfortable doing this presentation because I don't support this application. I understand that as members of this committee, we're supposed to limit our opinions on whether or not to vote yes, no, based solely on whether it meets the physical criteria that's being presented. I just have to say that the reason that Gail asked me to join this community board is to lend my expertise. For 30 years, I was the head of the Coalition for the Homeless. Among other things, we're the court-appointed monitors for the shelter system in New York City. And I can say without qualification that the shelters for single men and women run by the Salvation Army are among the worst. And for that reason, I cannot get behind supporting this installation. I'm going to abstain from voting just out of respect for the extraordinary work that's being done by the Madison Square Park Conservancy. I know you guys have taken a major hit. Make no mistake, homelessness is big business, especially in New York, and Salvation Army takes in millions and millions of dollars a year. So even though this is a quote nonprofit, basically taking money from an organization that gets a lot of money and you're giving them an even higher profile. So that's all I have to say. I'm just going to have to remain neutral in voting.
Mary, thank you very much for that input. I'd love to know if the Salvation Army representative would like to respond, or also if there's anyone else who has further comments about that.
I'm sorry that you feel that way. I think we're doing great work for New York City, and we've partnered with the coalition, the Don't Walk By coalitions for many years, and I respect your opinion. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that it's not an opinion. It's actually well documented in multiple inspection reports that are publicly available.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Rebecca. Chris.
Yeah, I'll also be taking the position of Mary on this and abstaining. Mary, thank you for sharing all that information. I really appreciate that background.
Thank you, Chris. So as chair, I would like to just remind everyone that this is certainly a tricky circumstance because everyone is entitled to their opinion, of course. And we have a difficult job deliberating all of the time about applications that have many nuances and many parameters around them. It is true that typically we weigh in on impact in the public space by a proposed commercial or marketing event. And the reason we do that is because there is so much competing use of all of our public space that we came up with the matrix in order to frame those discussions and guide our informed opinion about whether the benefit to the public is worth what the private or nonprofit or whatever it might be applicant is gaining from the use of the public space. So the matrix, I don't really believe we need to move through the matrix right now because I think it's pretty clear that that this application has pretty minor impact in the ways that we are concerned about. Even with illumination, that has been taken into consideration. The smallest generator, no sound, no handouts, the footprint is in the gravel area, et cetera, the things that we always look at. That is not to say that I don't understand the concerns, and I don't mean to suggest that you're not entitled to your opinion and vote how you deem necessary for yourself. But the vote on this application has to be seen in context of our history of taking public positions on all applications. And this is where I really get a little stymied, because when we have had even charitable organizations in the past file for permits to use park space, we have not asked about hiring practices. We have not asked about any history of discrimination by staff. We have not done that. So I am not saying your concerns and anyone's concerns are not legitimate. I am, however, suggesting that we have to take very seriously precedent and what it is we're actually suggesting we do moving forward, because we have not researched or asked these questions of many applicants in the past, nor could we possibly do so in a way that would be comprehensive or universal. I offer that as we continue to deliberate, because it is a difficult and kind of unusual circumstance. And I want to try to address it as best I can, while also absolutely conceding that I understand the objections. So if anyone else has any questions or comments.
I have a question to that point, Clayton. I'm going to presumably be writing the resolution with Mary, and I don't know if to that effect there's any specific language that you or Mary or anybody else would like included in the resolution. I don't know if we're at a point for making a motion yet. I would propose that I will be making a motion to approve this event, and that if there's any language that anybody would like to include beyond the scope of what the event itself is, that maybe this is the time to discuss what that is, because it's probably something that we should all agree to if it's germane and appropriate to include. I guess that's a question for you. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I would love to hear from other members of the committee if there's any language that you think could usefully address this. Todd.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Clayton, that as to the issue of the Salvation Army and its business practices and management of its various charitable endeavors, I agree with you. I don't think we can really get involved in that. I mean, any for-profit or nonprofit institution or company or group that comes before us is going to have from time to time issues of controversy or politics or business practices. I think for us to wade into that is opening a can of worms and start a slippery slope that I don't think we should really get involved in, other than to say we understand it. I mean, I remember there were some applications at Bryant Park for Facebook. Was it Facebook or was it Google? It was some tech company, and people were really angry at them. I mean, there's always going to be things like that. I think we have to stick to our jurisdiction. And, I would be very reluctant, except in extreme circumstances, to allow that sort of commentary by our committee to enter into this. So I don't think we should really add language of that type unless it's, extraordinary circumstances.
I would second what Todd is suggesting. And I think maybe the answer is this forum is a great place to discuss it, and have the conversation, but going on record and writing, to Todd's point, I agree with what Todd is saying.
Craig, you had your hand, and then Mary.
Yeah, thank you. So I will third what Todd said. I agree with Todd and Will. I mean, our task here is to say, is this a proper use of park space? What is the impact? I mean, as you said, we go through the matrix. this is a proper use of the park space, and it's low impact, and it's also giving valuable dollars to the Madison Square Park Conservancy. We, as Todd and Will have said, we go through a lot of applications in this committee, and we also go, even though it's for profit, we on PSQL look at all of these businesses. We don't look at the hiring practices of Danny Meyer when we're looking at a Danny Meyer restaurant application. That's not our jurisdiction, and quite frankly, that would be something that the SLA would look at. So I don't think that that's really our role here. I think, as Will said, it's certainly a good thing to talk about, and I think Todd said this also. It's a proper thing to talk about, and it's good that we're communicating our concerns to the representative of the Salvation Army here. But that's not what our function. I don't believe that that's what our function is in terms of how we vote. So I agree with Todd and Will that I don't think it should be a line in here. That being said, I respect Mary and Chris, their position and what they're saying and their concerns. I don't want to belittle that in any way, shape, or form. I just don't necessarily believe that it belongs in the resolution.
Mary.
Yeah, I'm certainly not asking for it to be put in the resolution, and I'm not trying to shirk my responsibility for work. Clayton, if you want to ask somebody else to lend a hand in doing the resolution, I have no problem with that. I completely hear you guys, Craig, Will, Todd. I just think that I need, and I'm not going to keep beating this horse, to say that this is another type of slippery slope. I don't know if it was you, Clayton, but somebody raised the historically homophobic practices of the Salvation Army and was assured that they had cleaned up their house, so to speak. So Todd, when you say only if it reaches something extraordinary, I just hope that poor people, and especially our homeless neighbors, merit the type of attention that our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters have been afforded.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, Rebecca.
I just may respond. The Salvation Army serves all those who come to our doors without discrimination based on any gender identity, sexual orientation, or anything else. That is our stance, and it always has been. Our mission is to serve all without discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mary, you know, I appreciate your comments again there, and acknowledging that our jurisdiction on this committee is what it is. And I do, though, want to suggest that that doesn't mean this is not an issue that we can't investigate how we might incorporate that into all of the very many things that we're discussing right now with homeless services in our city. So this is not a question for this committee, but I do wonder if this might help to inform conversations moving forward with the bigger picture about what's happening with health and human services and homeless services in the city, you know, talking about this issue in the context of this association. So I'm loath to kind of give off the feeling that we're just stopping that thread of conversation because we don't care about it. That is, I'm trying to combat that while also acknowledging what it is that we can do as a committee right now. So
I hear you. Thank you.
So I will leave that to conversations moving forward. And I think we've covered all the other parameters of the event. I will give one last shot for raised hands if anyone has questions or comments. And if not, then we can hear a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, let's take it to a vote.
Clayton.
Yes.
Craig, yes. David.
I'm going to abstain.
Miriam.
Yes.
Mary.
Abstain.
Chris.
I'll abstain as well.
Aaron.
Yes.
Will.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
There. Kim.
Yes.
Evan.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Noah.
Yes.
Jessica. Is Jessica still here?
She's gone.
She's gone. Okay. So motion passed.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone very much. And Keats, yes.
I just want to share, well, first of all, thank you all for that conversation and for approving it. We're grateful. I also wanted to share, we've had people reach out over concerns of safety in and around the park. And so, well, two things. One, in terms of data, we're as safe as we have always been, and there's actually less quality of life issues than we used to have. But two, we are convening in partnership with the BID to have a conversation about our neighborhood and community and safety. And so we're asking NYPD, we're asking a few of the the organizations that address homelessness, like Urban Pathways, and Carlina Rivera will be attending with us. And Clayton, I thought later offline I could ask if you wanted somebody from the community board to join that panel or discussion. And that will be December 7th from 5:30 to 6:30.
Great, thanks. If you could email me that, or email the board office that, that would be great.
Sure, will do. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Before we adjourn, everyone, applicants, you are excused. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to see if any members of the public had any, I think one person had contacted the board office in advance of the meeting, so I just wanted to see if anyone had a final comment before we adjourn. It seems that that person might not be in attendance. Oh no, we have Carly Lubin.
Okay, Carly, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, hello, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Carly. Thank you for giving us a brief idea of your comment.
Yes, I don't know if it's necessarily appropriate for this meeting, but I wanted to state what I wanted to say. I'm basically I'll be testifying on behalf of the expansion and development of community gardens, with also the integration of school gardens at the same time. Food insecurity has always been a problem that New York City residents face, but COVID-19 has sadly exacerbated the situation. The most vulnerable who suffer from food insecurity are minority New York City students. More specifically, Feeding America has stated that over 335,000, or 80% of all children across the 5 boroughs, are currently food insecure, with 40% of them being either overweight or obese. With the allocation and development of community gardens in New York City, public school children would have the potential to become involved in the formation of school gardens. Once school gardens are formed, public school children would essentially have the autonomy to control what they eat and how they eat. In essence, school gardens have become a lifeline for some of the neediest New Yorkers. As of November 19, 2020, Grow NYC Teaching Garden from Governor's Island has helped donate 20,000 plus pounds worth of fruits and vegetables to the hardest hit communities during this pandemic. In order to make food insecurity a thing of the past, I urge this committee on parks and public spaces to support the legislative bill, introduction number 0578-2018, by submitting a letter to the City Council that stresses the importance of establishment and development of school gardens throughout the 5 boroughs for New York City public school children who currently suffer from food insecurity.
Great, Carly. Thank you so much for attending and for your input. I believe that you have emailed your statement to the board office. If you've not, then please do so. And we will certainly look it over and give that some thought.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for your time. Meeting is adjourned. We'll see you at full board.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.